Hi, I'm Nick, and I'm from Table Games here at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. I'm going to show you today about how the game of craps is played. Craps is typically a very intimidating game for new players, as there's a lot of rules or concepts that have to be understood in order to play, but once you get the hang of it, you're going to have a lot of fun, and honestly, it's an easier game than you might think. Alright, so the game of craps primarily revolves around the pass line and the don't pass line. So essentially what is going to happen here is when you walk up to a craps table, once you've got your chips, you can place a wager on either the pass line or on the don't pass line. Usually you'll only bet one at a time. If you're betting on the pass line, which is the most common thing that players do, you are betting that the shooter who shoots the craps dice here is going to make their point, or roll a 7 or 11 on the starting roll. So that means if I were to roll, for example, well, this is a 2, that would actually be a losing bet there for the pass line. So when this puck right here is off, this is what we call the come out roll. If you're on the pass line and the 2, the 3, or the 12 roll, that is a losing wager, that is a craps roll. So this pass line wager is going to lose. However, if you were to roll on 11 or any combination of 7, quite a few ways to roll that, that would be a winning wager for the pass line, so that would get a 1-to-1 payout. Now, the opposite is true on the don't pass line. On the don't pass line, you're actually betting against the shooter, that they will not be successful in their throws. So if, in this case, the opposite numbers are true, in which case a 7 or an 11 would actually lose on the don't pass. A 2 or a 3 would win, but you can see here that the 12 actually is a push on the don't pass line. That's one exception there between those two. Okay, now there are plenty of other numbers that could be rolled other than a 7, 11, 2, 3, and 12 like we talked about before, and all of those numbers are up here in these boxes. When one of those numbers roll, for example, if the 9 were to roll, you would see the dealers on both sides mark the 9 here with this puck in the on position. That indicates that the point is 9. What's going to happen there is now if you're on the pass line, you only care about 2 numbers. Either a 9 needs to roll again in order for you to win, or a 7, which we call a 7 out at this point, would cause the pass line bet to lose. Any other number at that point wouldn't do anything for the purposes of this bet. So once there's a point, you only care about rolling that point again, or a 7. When that puck is off, that's when the 7 and 11 win, the 2, 3, and 12 lose. When you're on the pass line, again, if you're on the don't pass, the opposite would be true. Now, oftentimes when a player has a point, you will see them also make what we call place bets. And that is where the player can opt to wager on individual numbers other than the point that they already have an interest in. Remember, if that 9 were to roll right now, this player would win $10 on the pass line. Now, because normally these numbers wouldn't mean anything, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, because they have action on the place bets, they're going to get paid at different odds depending on how likely that number is to roll instead of a 7. So for example, if a 10 were to roll right now, while this point is established, this $10 wager would pay the player $18. It pays $9 for every $5 wagered. And different place bets have different odds. The dealer can always give you more information about that. However, if a 7 were to roll at this point, that 7 out, all of these bets would lose and the pass line would lose. And then once that were to happen, we go back to the come out roll. Now, if the 9 were to roll, again, the only thing that would get paid is that pass line bet, and we would also go back to the come out roll. Typically, these bets are not working during the come out roll when this puck is off. That means that in the event that a 7 were to roll, these bets would not lose until that puck had been established with the point again. So the only thing at risk is the pass line bet. Now, when there is a point established, let's go back to that 9 again, for example, it's very common for players to take what we call odds. That means that you are placing an additional wager behind your pass line wager if you're on the pass line. That pays true odds. That means that the actual odds of a 9 rolling before a 7 is a 3-to-2 proposition. So it should pay about 150 for every 100 you wager. In this case, a $20 wager would pay $30 if the 9 were to hit. So it's a true odds wager. In some casinos, you can bet as little as 1 to 2 times. Some casinos up to maybe even 10 times. Now, at our casino, we have what's called a 3-4-5 odds rule. That means that depending on the point that is established, you can take a different amount of odds. If the point is 4 or 10, you can take 3 times your pass line bet as your odds. So a $10 wager, you could put up to $30 in the back. If the point is 5 or 9, you can take 4 times odds, so up to $40 for a $10 wager. Or if the point is 6 or 8, you can take 5 times odds. So this wager here of $10 would let you place $50 for your odds. Very popular bet, as that particular wager, the odds bet, both on the pass line and the don't pass, has a 0% house advantage after you've already risked that pass or don't pass bet. Now, in addition to that, you can also bet what's called a come bet. Now, come bets are only available once a point is established. If there is no point, a come bet is the same thing as a pass line bet, so you would just make this pass line wager. Now, if, let's say the point is 8, if I were to make what's called a come bet right now, this come bet, again, is subject to the same rules that the pass line had before there was a point, which means that this will win on a 7 or 11, this will lose on a 2, 3, or 12. If any other number were to roll, it would move to that spot, and just like that pass line bet, this is now waiting on a 9 to win, and this is gonna lose on a 7. Also important to note that both come bets once they've moved and pass line bets, those are contract wagers once a point is established. That means that once the dealer has marked that puck, that you are not able to modify, add to, or remove this wager right here. Same thing goes for this one. You can, however, modify the odds. So we talked about before, 3, 4, 5 times odds. That means you can take 5 times on the 6 or 8. So you could wager $50 in the back here. Now on the 9, that's a 4 times odds wager. So we can take up to $40 in odds, and the dealer will set this up. Anything that's behind the come line here is gonna be where the dealer sets up these wagers. So if you need any help there, you can always put the money down here in the come area and let them know what you want. And another way to make the game of craps a little more exciting is many of the different one roll and hard way bets that are available. For example, the field bet. So in order to make a field wager, whatever the table minimum is, you can place that in the field at any time, regardless of whether or not there is a point. When you're betting on the field, it's very straightforward. You're betting that any of the numbers that appear in the field will be the next roll of the dice. If a 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, or 12 roll, that field bet is a winner. If any of the numbers that are not listed, meaning the 5, 6, 7, and 8, this is a losing wager. Also, if the 2 or 12 roll, this will actually pay 2 to 1 instead of the 1 to 1 odds that you would normally get on any of the other numbers. Very easy to understand bet, and one that adds a little bit of instant action to the game if you're looking to spice things up while you're playing. All right, and last but not least, if you're also looking for a fun way to spice up the game of craps, you also have the proposition bet area. Now, the prop bets, what happens here is we have all sorts of different ways that you can make rolls of the dice a little more interesting. For example, we have the hard ways here up top. When you're betting on a hard way, you can typically bet as little as $1 up to the table maximum, that the number that is shown, in this case, an 8, that it's gonna come up the hard way. A hard way means that that number rolls in pairs. So it only applies to the 2, or the 4, the 6, the 8, or the 10. So in the event that the next time that the 8 is thrown, it comes up as a 4-4. As long as this bet is working, it's gonna pay 9 to 1. However, if any combination of 7 rolls, or if an 8 were to roll what we call the easy way, meaning it rolls a way other than a pair, then this bet would lose in either of those circumstances. So any 7 will cause it to lose, or rolling that specific number the easy way, in this case 6-2 or 5-3 would be ways of making that bet lose. Then that bet would come down and you would need to put that bet back up. Same thing goes here for the hard 4 and the hard 10. These pay a little bit more, as it's a little bit harder to make those versus rolling a 7. Now also down here we have just about any combination of the dice you can think of. These are what are referred to mostly as hot bets. Let's say you want to roll on the next roll of the dice being a 6-2 specifically. You could place a $1 wager on that, and if it comes up that way, it'll pay 15 to 1. Any other combination of the dice, including if this came a 5-3, for example, instead of a 6-2 as an 8, this bet would lose. It has to come up exactly as shown. You can bet on any of these. The hard way hops, those pay a double. They pay 30 to 1 as opposed to 15 to 1 because there's only one way to make that. You can also bet on what we call the horn bet. This is all the way down here at the bottom. A horn bet is a combination of a 2, a 3, an 11, and a 12. A very popular bet to make during the come out roll. As we talked about before, 7s, 11s, 2s, 3s, and 12s all affect gameplay when we are in the come out portion of the game. You can even add an extra dollar to it and make it a $5 wager and make that horn bet heavy on one of the numbers. So it kind of sweetens the deal a little bit if that particular number comes out. For example, a horn high 12 would pay quite nicely in the event that the 12 were to hit at that 30-to-1 payout. Now, that is just some of the wagers that you can make on a craps table, and while it might seem a little bit overwhelming at first, if you ever want to give it a try, feel free to step on up and talk to any of our friendly dealers, and they'll be more than happy to walk you through the experience so that you can experience the action of a live dice table. Good luck!